Let's talk about free school lunches. A plan so simple it seemed foolproof. Imagine a world where every child, no matter their family's income, could count on a hot, nutritious meal at school every single day. Every child in public school gets a free hot meal. No forms to fill out, no awkward questions, no stigma, just food, served with dignity. It was a bold move, designed to erase the invisible lines that divided kids by what was in their lunchbox. For parents juggling jobs, bills, and the daily chaos of family life, it was a huge relief. One less thing to worry about in the morning rush. Knowing their kids would be fed at school brought peace of mind. Kids no longer faced lunch shaming. Everyone was equal in the cafeteria. The lunchroom became a place where friendships could grow, free from embarrassment or judgment. Teachers noticed students were more focused, fueled by something better than chips or a hastily packed snack. With full stomachs, kids could finally concentrate on learning. The press loved it. Officials were hailed as heroes for tackling child hunger head-on. Headlines celebrated the program as a turning point in public education. The program was a model for the nation, a feel-good story about dignity and equality. Other districts looked on with envy, wondering if they could replicate the success. It sent a message. Every child deserves to be nourished, no matter their background or circumstance. It was about more than just food, it was about fairness. The logic was ironclad, the results immediate. Kids were happier, parents were grateful, and schools felt transformed. What could possibly go wrong? For a moment, it was a utopian dream come true, the kind of policy that made everyone feel good about the future. But as the initial excitement faded, cracks began to show. The reality of running such a massive program started to set in. The question wasn't if something would go wrong, but when. Whispers of problems began to circulate among staff and parents. The answer? Sooner than anyone expected. Issues emerged that no one had predicted. And that's where our story really begins. At the moment when the dream started to unravel. The Free Lunch for All program was a runaway hit. So popular, it broke the budget. County officials had wildly underestimated demand. They thought only the neediest would participate. Instead, every student lined up. Why not? It was free, easy, and social. Participation soared past projections, turning a generous budget into pocket change. The cost per meal multiplied by tens of thousands, and the numbers ballooned. The finance department panicked as deficits grew week by week. The program's success became its biggest liability. Officials who once celebrated were now scrambling, trapped by the program's popularity. Stopping it was politically impossible. The dream of free lunch was now a fiscal nightmare. The county had created a monster and had no idea how to feed it. The question was no longer, how do we help, but how do we survive? The answer would come at a steep price. With the lunch program devouring funds at an unprecedented rate, officials found themselves forced to raid other budgets just to keep it afloat. What started as a well-intentioned effort quickly became a desperate scramble for resources. Parks, libraries, road maintenance, arts. Nothing was safe from the relentless search for money. Every corner of the county felt the squeeze, as cherished public spaces and vital services were stripped to the bone. Every spare dollar, every emergency fund, every contingency was funneled into the lunch program's black hole, leaving little behind for anything else. Cuts went from trimming fat to cutting bone, hiring freezes, delayed projects, slashed services. Even the most basic community needs were put on indefinite hold. The county sacrificed the future for the present, hoping for a miracle that never came. Playgrounds grew silent, and once busy fields became overgrown and forgotten. Essential services withered as the lunch program grew, swallowing up resources that once kept the community vibrant and healthy. The program meant to help kids was now hurting the very community they lived in, creating tension and worry among parents and neighbors. Officials doubled down, unable to admit the program was unsustainable. Instead of changing course, they defended their choices, even as the evidence mounted. The sunk cost fallacy kept them pouring money into a failing system, convinced that giving up now would mean all previous sacrifices were for nothing. The county became a hollow shell, well-fed students at the center, but decaying infrastructure and neglected neighborhoods all around them. The so-called free lunch was starting to look very expensive, with hidden costs that grew more obvious every day. The cost wasn't just financial, it was the slow erosion of everything else that made the county a community. The community was paying, one cut at a time, as each new round of reductions chipped away at their shared quality of life. And the worst was yet to come. as the true consequences of these choices had only just begun to reveal themselves. Budget cuts became real. Library hours slashed, after-school programs canceled, bus routes eliminated. The library, a lifeline for students and seniors, was now open only a few hours a day. Homework clubs and story time vanished. Computer access for job seekers and students? Nearly gone. School bus cuts stranded families, forcing parents to scramble or let kids walk miles. Attendance dropped, especially in remote areas. After-school activities, sports clubs, tutoring, disappeared overnight. Teachers lost stipends, students lost safe spaces, and afternoons became a void. The irony was brutal. A program meant to help kids was dismantling their support systems. Kids had lunch at noon but nowhere safe to go at 3:30. The community was hollowed out, one non-essential service at a time. The dominoes fell, knocking over the pillars that held the community together. The free lunch had a cost, and everyone was paying it. The damage was spreading. Let's meet Maria, a single mom doing her best to provide for her son in a world where every dollar counts. Free lunch at school saved her money, until her son's bus route was suddenly cut, leaving her scrambling for solutions. Now she leaves work early, losing more in wages than she ever saved on lunch, and the stress is starting to show. Mr. Henderson, a retired teacher who found purpose in helping kids, lost his after-school tutoring program when funding dried up. Students like Jamal, who was finally improving in math thanks to extra help, lost their support and started to fall behind again. High schoolers who relied on library jobs for spending money and experience lost those opportunities overnight. Seniors lost their safe haven, a place where they gathered for warmth, friendship, and a sense of belonging. Each cut was a personal blow, felt deeply by those who depended on these programs for stability and hope. Teachers saw firsthand the benefits of free lunch, then watched helplessly as support systems vanished, leaving them to pick up the pieces. Students arrived late, stressed, and lost access to enriching activities that once kept them engaged and motivated. The policy meant to help was now hurting the very people it aimed to serve, creating new barriers instead of breaking them down. The ripple effect was everywhere. Families, teachers, kids, and neighborhoods all felt the pain, and the sense of community began to fray. The county's good intentions had created a web of hardship, with consequences that reached far beyond the cafeteria. The front lines of education became a battlefield of frustration and loss, as staff struggled to do more with less. In the end, the cost of a free lunch was measured in more than dollars. It was counted in lost opportunities, strained families, and dreams put on hold. In the cafeterias, things were far from rosy. Staff, already stretched thin, now had to serve double the meals with no extra help or equipment. Lunch lines snaked down hallways. Chaos reigned. Workers ran out of trays, sporks, and popular food items. Morale plummeted as pride in their work gave way to exhaustion and burnout. To cope, food quality dropped. Fresh produce replaced by canned. Meals became cheap and processed. The promise of nutritious meals faded into a reality of filling stomachs with whatever was affordable. Equipment broke down, but with spending frozen, repairs were impossible. Crisis management became the new normal. Cafeteria workers were exhausted, unsupported, and watching standards slip. The lunch program was still running, but at a heavy human cost. The cracks were everywhere and the strain was unsustainable. The dream was unraveling from the inside. How did it go so wrong? Simple. A total failure of planning. Officials loved the idea, but ignored the details. No real budget, no pilot programs, no stress tests. They underestimated demand, ignored logistics, and never asked the people actually running the kitchens or buses. The initiative was planned in a silo, disconnected from reality. The more appealing the idea, the less scrutiny it got. Questioning the plan felt like questioning compassion itself. Tough questions weren't asked, and problems weren't addressed. The political will was huge, but the practical work was missing. They had a great slogan, but no sustainable plan. The result, a house of cards, doomed to collapse. The lesson? Good intentions aren't enough. Compassion without competence leads to disaster. Numbers matter, budgets matter. Ignoring them leads to canceled buses and closed libraries. Transparency is key. Officials hid the deficit, making cuts in secret and eroding public trust. When the community realized what was happening, they felt betrayed. Sustainable programs require honest conversations and community involvement from the start. If parents, teachers, and staff had been consulted, many problems could have been avoided. Policy should be done with the community, not to it. Simple solutions to complex problems rarely work. Real progress is careful, incremental, and flexible. Leaders must be honest about costs and trade-offs. A dream without a plan is just a hallucination. Execution is everything. So, should we give up on feeding hungry kids? Absolutely not. The goal is noble. The failure was in execution, not ambition. The answer is smarter planning, honest accounting, and community input. A successful program supports children without gutting other vital services. Leaders must ask, how does this fit into the whole ecosystem of community support? Citizens must demand transparency and ask tough questions. An engaged public is the best defense against poorly planned policies. The story of Prosperity County is a parable for our times. Achieving our values requires more than a good heart. It takes hard work, open minds, and respect for the details. That's how we build solutions that last.